Climate disasters don't end when the floodwaters recede or the landslides stop. For millions of Indians, that's when a quieter crisis begins. In this episode, we speak to Hridayesh Joshi, the author of our latest big story, India's Climate Disasters Are Triggering a Silent Mental Health Crisis. His piece is a powerful investigation into how climate driven disasters are leaving deep, lasting psychological scars across India, from the Himalayas to the coasts. We talk about survivors living in permanent disaster mode, why mental health remains invisible in recovery plans, and what it takes to build systems that heal minds as seriously as they rebuild roads and homes. Hello, Radesh sir. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you,
Uh,
Anushka. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So mental health is, of course, something that has been part of conversations for a while now. But, when it comes to extreme weather events, it is not somehow made its way into any policy or any of the conversations. You have written that there are some common psychological patterns that repeat themselves once these disasters end and survivors are in a constant state of alert. Can you give us some examples of what they actually go through? What does life look like for survivors after these disasters?
Yes, Anushka. To set the context in a few seconds, I would like to tell how difficult the situation in a state like Uttarakhand is. You may be remembering a couple of years back, perhaps in 2023, we had a National Remote Sensing Lab Hyderabad's study, which said how difficult it is to avoid landslides in a state like Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand has 13 districts, and that study listed 147 most vulnerable districts of India, and all 13 districts were in Uttarakhand. All 13 districts of Uttarakhand were in that list, and most of the districts were in the top level of that list. So it seems sometimes that as if the entire state is caving in. So the examples you asked, one example which we have listed in our story also, we have mentioned how a person in Rudraprayag district, which was the topmost district in the list of those remote sensing labs study, world that landslide atlas, he can't work at all and he has a family to support. Now that kind of situation, the whole family goes through that trauma. Another story which we mentioned in very start of our piece is the story of Pradeep Pawar. He tells her mother committed suicide after Dharali incident which happened last year in August, and she jumped into Bhagirathi river. But if his family members were not aware, she would have taken his younger brother also along with her, and he may also have died, which the apprehension he expressed in front of me. So this clearly shows that trauma is very high, and these incidents, Anushka, as you know, are happening every year in Uttarakhand and many parts which go unreported. When people die, unfortunately, in sufficiently large number, then it gets reported. Otherwise, people dying, three, four, five, six people dying in remote areas, they don't even get reported. This happened because it was in Gangotri route. Dharali was in Gangotri route, and it was a huge landslide. 55 people died. Get whole town got buried in couple of minutes. So it was reported because the visuals were overwhelming. But if you go, and it was in Gangotri route, as I said, Kedarnath happened because more than 6,000 people, around 6,000 people died officially. If you go there and investigate, the actual number was much higher. The official number is 6,000. It was in world. Never ever so many people died together in one climate disaster, so-called natural disaster, at such height. We have abundant number of examples which show that the psychological trauma, which is supported now by scientific studies also, as we have written in this, is playing its role after these disasters.
Right. So I think primarily what they are going through is post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD as it's called. Is that what they are primarily going through, or are there any other? Depression is one I know, but is that all sort of How does one differentiate between these different
Actually,
responses?
that is very tricky part which you said the look, listen, and link. The psychological first aid comes because of this question only which you ask. Because sometimes you do not know a person looking very normal can be going through a lot. He or she may be going through a lot. Because as Dr. Bhadra said, this is the Himalayan people who live in a very difficult situation. They become very strong from they go through every day, but they may face this, but you may break inside. So hypervigilance is something which experts have observed. People are going and as today we are using in the digital world, we have a lot of this kind of phantom syndrome. There is no notification, but we keep watching our mobile phone. Is there something is happening? These people sadly are going through a different kind of such syndrome, which is called hypervigilance going again. So repeated checking the riverbanks and all, sadness, constant psychological burden in their mind. And then it when it comes to women, because men have a lot of luxury, they go out, they spend time with their friends, they play volleyball, football outside. Today they are in Rishikesh, tomorrow they take a vehicle and go to Dehradun also. But women have to look in the same gloomy landscape day and night and support their families, children. They have more such kind of problem. So this has to be taken care of, and this is not an easy task unless or until we deal it with a lot of sincerity.
So we always see that the numbers are given, so many people died, this much damage was done, financial loss is also meticulously counted. Why do you think psychological loss remains so invisible when it comes to India's disaster response?
First of all, we should tell our viewers, those who have not read the story, it's good that if they read it, but still I will tell them that India's mental health care is led by a multi-tiered framework, which is led by NDMA. And India also has a state mental health and psychological support system. We call it MHPSS. So India has a system at place. And if you see, Nimhans is one hospital in down south, but this time's budget they have declared one more Nimhans in North India also. We have other mental institutes also. We have Ayushman Arogya Mandirs also. We have a district mental health program also, which provides such facility in every district, every 738 districts of India. So where is the problem? The problem is, as one of the expert, Nikhil Jain of Pune's Mental Health Institute told us, that mental health is not associated with the non-health recovery action which should be done. Actually, it is worth quoting which he said, and I should tell our listeners here what he said, and this is right. Actually, the situation is that disasters in India are underestimated, not because their impacts is minor, but because they are framed as short-term emergencies. Disasters are not, everybody knows that they are not minor, but the way we treat problem lies there. So we have to link this to non health actions. You provide them employment, you provide them good and safe housing, so only then it can be treated. That is where the problem is.
Right. So then, in that case, who should be responsible that to ensure that this mental health care reaches those who have survived these disasters? Should it be the health departments or the disaster authorities, or even local governments? And why should that sort of institution be responsible for it?
So Anushka, I would say everybody, every institutions, every body, every person you mentioned is responsible at some level. It should be there in at policy level, and the political leadership has to be very sensitive, because you would not believe. I'll tell you a very important and very interesting thing. When Chipko movement happened in 1970s, MLA is called in Hindi Vidhayak. When some activists reached there, Chandi Prasad Bhatt told me this incident long back. One of his associates told me that when he reached Vidhayak, he said, "Vidhayak यहाँ कभी आता है?" I mean, in their language, he said. So they said they are asking about some crop. They said, "No, no, Vidhayak यहाँ नहीं होता." यहाँ आलू होता है, प्याज होता है, लहसुन होता है, बट विधायक नहीं होता. So political leadership sometimes doesn't reach there because the terrain is so difficult, and they say, "Yeah, okay, that's fine, I mean, even if you don't reach there." So they have to reach there because disaster is happening right there, people are suffering right there. So they do not have to sit at Dehradun or any other capital of like Shimla or Sikkim's capital, Gangtok, and all these places. They have to go there. Number two, the linkage of the different departments. NDMA is responsible. NDMA is leading this thing, but they think that other part we should have. We talk about Arogya Mandirs, we talk about other facilities and on papers, but experts, we will have to put and invest money to put experts on ground at those places. The unfortunate thing is that today no doctor wants to go there and spend time in these areas for other facilities also. One gynecologist during this trip also told the student, she say, I am doing a medical course there, but I will not work here because if I today as a gynecologist deal with a pregnancy, there is no blood bank, there is no facility. How will I'll give the how will I give the service to the people? So government should understand that first they should ask people to work there, they should encourage them, give incentive to them, and also give facilities to them for the normal health. Then comes the medical health, which should be integral part of the health facilities, and also the non-health actions which the government is taking.
So now we have identified, what the, where the gaps are, but I think your piece also touches upon what timely help can do for these survivors, and the numbers are quite promising. Can you talk a bit more about this and what the experts have said about this?
Yes, when the disasters happen, the mental health conditions typically rise, as Dr. Bhadra says, around 3 to 5% after disasters. But the situation can be improved. The distress is often highest among the elderly, women, children. We see it, but particularly when you intervene timely. What he says that, and I must quote him, that these impacts are not permanent. Where timely psychological support and recovery system are in place, severe distress has been shown to fall from nearly 15 to 20% in the immediate aftermath to as low as 2% over the time. So from 15 to 20%, it goes as low as to 2% over time. So it is very important that once something has happened today, Dharali, after 6 months of Dharali incident, I went there, Anushka, to do this story. Dharali happened in August, but in December there was no change. So people have not seen any governance when the cameras were switched off, and there was no media glare there. So this is something which gives people a sense of deceit also, and that plays on their mental health. So that is something very important, good that you ask, that if they intervene and if they make people realize that we are with you and proper medical care, mental health care is given, the things can be improved. And it has been proved that when there is an intervention, things are better later on.
Right. So when you speak of monitoring systems, I just wanted to understand what kind of monitoring systems can measure, the state of someone's mental health, or what are you sort of referring to in that case?
That can happen at two levels. One, as an experience, when we went to Dharamli, I found that the panchayat pradhan person, the head of panchayat, was a young man. He did not have any idea that what to do with these people at such a situation. He did not have any experience. One monitoring is that political leaders at the lowest level, community level, they should watch and know what people are going through and what they need. That is one thing, and they should report it to up. And then that is the job of a doctor, expert person, to know how they should act on it. Another is about collection of data about the things which are happening. As very simply scientists told us after this incident, that convective activities, the rain, heavy rain was never happening at the higher level because the temperature was uh, cool down there. But now the convectional rain, heavy precipitation, is happening at a very high level where it was never expected. So such monitoring will also be required, Anushka, to minimize the impact or to build a adaptation or mitigation infrastructure so that people don't go through again and again with the such disasters. Dharali was not a cloudburst as it was reported earlier by some people. It was because there was a prolonged rainfall at a very risky and uh, vertical terrain, which was told by Dr. Juyal and I mentioned there. Our readers can read it there. So these two kind of monitoring: one monitoring of the landscape, one monitoring of the people, and then the clubbing it with the experts. So then only you can deal with the situation.
Okay. So I think what we've heard today is that recovery is not just about rebuilding what was destroyed. It also means restoring dignity, stability, and a sense of safety. And until mental health is treated as central to disaster response, the real damage of climate disasters will remain unfinished. Thank you so much, Hridesh sir, for joining us today. Thank you to everyone who's
Thank you very much for inviting. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who's watching. You can read the full story on our website, carboncopy.info. See you next time.